Welcome to Inside Southern California. I'm Lynn Harper, and as usual, we have a very different show. This one, really different. Watch this. Take a look at a rover. This is actually a Mars rover. And what you're looking at back here is what that rover is seeing. And I would like to introduce you to a couple of people who have a very, very interesting group that they belong to. So, of course, I don't want to say, last but not least and what have you, but if you don't mind, Shannon, I'm going to introduce Jerry Williams first. Welcome to Inside Southern California, Jerry.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to also introduce Shannon Rupert because the two of you have a lot to do with the Mars Society San Diego, and I'm going to ask both of you to tell everybody else about the Mars Society. Fair enough? So, Jerry Williams, Shannon Rupert, my question is to you, Jerry. Tell us about the Mars Society and jump in anytime.
Okay, well, the Mars Society is a group of about 6,000 people across the world, not just in the United States, who are interested in putting humans on the planet Mars. We've been going around in circles in our space program for about 33 years now, and it's time we figured that our space program needs to go somewhere, back to the moon and then on to Mars.
And Shannon, what do you do with the Mars Society? How long have you been in it?
I've been in the Mars Society since 1999.
Whoa, that's a while.
And I'm actually the science coordinator for the Mars Analog Research Station program.
Well, I know that Jerry is also a filmmaker, and we have some amazing footage that we're going to show. But before we do, a little bit more about that little guy who just scooted on up. This is like a mini rover?
Yeah, it's a 1/4 scale model of the Spirit and Opportunity rovers that are on Mars right now. And they've been there for 19 months now, and they're still working. We built this as kind of an outreach program to talk to kids about them, get them interested in Mars. It's built on a radio-controlled truck body, and it's got a wireless video camera, as you saw, so we can actually let the kids drive the rover.
Yeah, well, let's move it around while you're talking about it. Let's see if it can come up and bite Shannon. What do you say? Okay, so, oh my gosh, and here it is here. Oh, nice shoes, Shannon. All right.
Whoop, catch.
Yeah. So it just, look what happened. It just attacked the world. It did. That is really neat. You have so many wonderful visuals, but you also have a fascinating, and I'm going to call it a lifestyle, because when I first saw the video that we're going to start showing, to me, I got sucked right up into it. It was so real. Why don't we take a look at what I'm talking about? Talking about it's one thing, looking at it's another. So let's take a look at the first clip that Jerry, you and Shannon brought with you. And then Jerry, you and Shannon need to tell us what we're going to be looking at.
All right.
Okay.
Well, what we've got is a picture of the Mars Desert Research Station in Utah. It's one of two research habitats that we have. We put a crew of 6 people in these habitats for 2 to 4 weeks at a time, and they have to simulate being on Mars. So we're actually learning how to live and work on Mars. You're seeing the upstairs floor on the Utah habitat here, the individual staterooms, and the very top there is the water tank, or the top hatch.
So
now
they
here,
can get
one
out,
of the things
right?
we're doing is doing biofeedback experiments on there. This is John Putnam out of Los Angeles. He's setting up and doing a work on one of his fellow crewmates here, and they're playing a game of fly a spaceship, collect the diamonds in the universe, but he's not doing it with his hands. He's doing it all with biofeedback. So he was doing this to kind of figure out the stress and that type of thing that you need to know to go to Mars.
That is fascinating. And I'm going to ask a question. Maybe I should know the answer to this, but Shannon, have you been in that particular habitat? How long did you spend there?
I've spent a lot of months there. I actually hold the record for a number of days spent in a Mars analog simulation.
Which is how many days?
I've spent over 100 days in total, but I've been in the Arctic and in Australia and in Utah. I've probably spent 75 days there.
Whoa. Now we're looking at spacesuits, and that's
what we're seeing here is the suit-up room. The habitat each has a suit-up room that takes the 6 or 8 spacesuits we have on hand. The guys have to, here they're cleaning off the helmet to keep it from fogging up, but they have to suit up in pairs and go through an airlock depressurization before they can go outside of that habitat, because theoretically they are on Mars at that point.
That's right. So Shannon, you said 75 days at once, but many, many days
in the past 4 years.
And Jerry's talking about the suit. We're going to actually have someone modeling that suit later on, because there's nothing like looking at the real thing. But talk to me about claustrophobia.
I don't know. I've never been claustrophobic. I'm very comfortable in the suit. Part of that, I think, is I'm a lifelong backpacker, and so the backpack was comfortable immediately. And there are people who get claustrophobic. We've actually had some really, really high-powered scientists go out there and they can't stand the suit.
And the suit, what about the habitat? You're 100 days in this habitat. You go out only in the suit.
Right. It is a lifestyle, like you said, and it's suited to some people and not to others.
Nice
and,
play on words, suited to some people. Nice, Shannon.
I'm really comfortable there.
Okay,
So.
well, we have another tape. I mean, we're just loaded with tapes because Jerry's a filmmaker. And Shannon and Jerry, I'd like to know about this particular tape. So let's roll that one and take a look. What is it, Jerry?
Okay, here we're doing some more suit up. They're finishing getting in the suit. Now, these aren't real spacesuits. These are analog spacesuits. And the whole idea here is to give the person inside the suit the feel that they are in a real spacesuit. So whenever they do their work, like Shannon's a biologist, she goes out to do field biology in the Utah desert. So she has to do it now instead of in boots and shorts and a ball cap. She has to do it in a full-on spacesuit with the big thick gloves, the big heavy boots, 3 hours of air in the backpack, another 3 hours of air if she takes an ATV rover. Here John is actually putting on his communications gear, and he's using duct tape to keep it to his face. Because once you're out in sim, you can't, if the headphone slips or his hat slips, you can't take the helmet off because that would essentially kill you on Mars. So we have to make sure everything's secure and nailed down before we go in. Here they're attaching the air hoses because we are actually providing air from the backpack into the helmet. And they're basically getting ready to come out the door and to the habitat.
Here's the question that I have for you, and I sort of led into it, Shannon, when I talked about claustrophobia. Obviously, if somebody needs to get out of the suit, they're going to get out of the suit. And let's say they do get out of the suit. Do you punish them and kick them out of the Mars Society?
No, or there'd be a few people that we'd have to have gotten rid of.
That's what
a lot of times there's malfunctions in the suits, which there will be when we actually get to Mars. So we have an entire subset of research that looks at emergencies in the field. What do you do when you're out there in your suit? Suddenly the batteries die on the ventilation system. And we have protocols in place for getting that person back to the hab. Of course, it's not a life-threatening situation, but it's still something you need to look at because when you get to Mars, it will be a life-threatening situation.
And I want to talk more about when we get back from a short break. When you say when we get to Mars, not if we get to Mars. And I'm going to connect that with, I think, the underlying reasons why your society is conducting these experiments. We want to talk about that as soon as we get back from break. So don't you go away. This is Inside Southern California. I'm Lynn Harper, and we'll be right back. Yep, there she is. It's a she, right?
It's a she.
Any name?
We thought about calling her the Mir C, but that sounded too much like Mercy because the two rovers on Mars are the Mir A and the Mir B.
Oh, that is so
So we just
cute.
call her the San Diego Mars rover now.
Well, my name, Lynn, is always everybody's middle name, so call her Mir Lynn C. Will you?
There you go.
Okay.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah. So we want to look at another video clip,
Okay.
if you wouldn't mind. And this one is interesting because it's going to take us back into the habitat, I believe, and take a little bit look at the suits because we have a special surprise.
Okay,
So
this
what
is
are we looking
actually
at?
outside the habitat. The habitat's 2 stories tall and about 28 feet in diameter, so claustrophobia isn't that big of a deal there. But here the guys are coming out, going over to the ATVs that they'd actually use on Mars, and they're going to go drive to a location. Right now on Earth, they can use GPS positioning, which is what they're showing here. They're actually setting up the GPS. They're communicating with the habitat, telling people where they are, where they're going, how much fuel is in the rovers, how far they expect to go.
Well,
But the Utah desert's amazing.
they're in those suits in the desert. Did you
Yes.
mention that those suits are air conditioned?
They're not
some
really
way?
air conditioned.
Oh,
They are
boy.
blowing air into the helmet for people to breathe with, but the suits themselves are not. But in Utah, we're only in the habitats from November through May, so basically during the winter months.
Because you've got a lot of gear there. What do you have, a great big semi that hauls that out?
No, actually, a couple of SUVs and a truck. The habitat is actually reconstructed there in the Utah desert,
Oh.
so it stays there.
Okay, well, you see the guy in the suit? Well, we're going to take a look at the real thing. This is Israel Lidsky, and he's actually wearing one of those suits, right, Jerry?
Yes, this is an analog suit that we built in San Diego, mostly for public relations. This would never go out to the desert. It's made out of a heavy nylon, which is real hot, so we can't stay in there a lot. But the suits in Utah are made out of canvas. But the whole idea is to give the feeling of the person inside working on Mars that they're in a real suit. So we have the big, thick boots here.
Oh,
Big
wow,
military
look at
jump
those.
boots.
Golly,
We
gee.
have gaiters. We have the big, thick gloves. You know, so you can't really touch and feel anything
Right,
like
and a
you
mirror
could.
on his arm.
You got a mirror on your arm because you can't see behind you.
Oh,
so you have to
right.
be able to hold that up and look behind you.
Wow.
You've got a big bubble helmet. I had problems when we were out shooting because I had a still camera and I couldn't bring it up too close to see. So I kept bumping my camera on the bubble helmet. We've also got on the back, we have a backpack that's actually pumping air into the helmet. Theoretically, we have 3 hours of air in here.
So not air conditioned, but air.
Just air,
Okay,
just so they
okay.
can breathe on the inside. So 360 here, let's see.
Look at this.
We've got our patches here. Here's the Mars Society logo. On the other side here, we have the Mars Society flag based on Kim Stanley Robinson's book, Red Mars, Green Mars, and Blue Mars.
Right.
That's for when we go to Mars, we find it red, dead, desolate. Human beings start taking over there. They start planting things, and pretty soon we bring the water back. We terraform the whole planet. So Mars becomes a mini Earth.
Okay, so that's the reason for the colors on the patch.
That's the reason for
And
the
I
flag.
noticed there's a mic in there. Israel can speak, and he's got some sort of a radio.
Yes, that's how
phone
you
here?
communicate between two other astronauts, because we always send them out in at least pairs, and also back to the habitat. You know, the habitat needs to know where you're going to be so that if you get in trouble, like your ATV breaks down, they can send a rescue party.
Okay.
Or even worst case scenario, we're writing the first aid book on Mars too. If somebody falls down in a spacesuit and
Whoa.
they're unconscious, you know, how do you tell if they're breathing? You can't lift their helmet off because that would kill them.
Oh, I see.
You know,
what
so
you
we
mean.
have to either put our helmet up to their helmet and listen to them breathing. We could trigger their radio to hear if they're breathing. Or, and if they are, we can just put them on a stretcher with 4 people and carry them back to the habitat.
Have you ever had to do that, or are you just prepared for
We've
it?
only had to do that in simulation.
Oh, okay, good.
Although Shannon did have an ATV breakdown on her rather spectacularly in the Canadian Arctic.
It broke into 2 pieces.
Oh, no. And you were in one of those pieces?
Yeah, we were about 7 kilometers out and literally had an ATV. It's very, very rough terrain. And I was out with another scientist, and all of a sudden he just stopped, and I'm like, why'd you stop? He's like, I don't know. We can't go. I just can't go. And we literally broke the ATV into 2 pieces.
Oh my gosh, so things do happen,
Oh,
even though,
absolutely.
because I'm sitting here with you, I'm losing my perception of simulation versus reality. So with that in mind, let's take a look at yet another clip, because it takes us further into the Mars Society and what they do. And then we're going to come back and talk about that reality versus, because what is, you know. So let's take a look at that clip, and thank you, Israel, and watch out.
Okay,
What are we
we're
looking at
seeing
here?
here is them going out doing geology. And again, as a geologist, you can't really touch and feel and smell and taste rocks like you normally do. You have to, you know, do all this through the Mars simulated spacesuit here. But you can see they do have a lot of mobility. They climbed up that hill, and you know, spectacular view up there. And there's nothing like being in a spacesuit with a bubble helmet, being on an ATV rover
Wow,
out in
look
the
at
middle
that.
of the Utah desert, which is red, red rock. And the only thing that's wrong is the sky is very blue there. On Mars, it would be kind of a pinkish purple. But here they're
Wow.
actually going out and they're looking for, here they found a rock full of mica.
Mhm.
So a lot of mica flux, a lot of quartz. Here they're looking at an evaporate deposit, because salt water runs down that hill, the water evaporates, and it leaves the salt.
Now, I've got a question for you. You shot these videos, Jerry, and a
Yes.
beautiful job. It looks so real. But the truth is, it's Utah. It's not
Utah.
Mars. What are you doing getting the rocks and all these kinds of things, if not in the mental set of, gee, this could be Mars? You know, I mean, let's talk about that mental set, because as I told you, I'm already sucked into your world, you know? And when you said when we get to Mars, are you convinced that we will?
Absolutely. I think it'll just be time. In fact, I grew up in the space program. I was in kindergarten when they launched Alan Shepard, Yuri Gagarin. I was in junior high and high school when they were landing on the moon. When I graduated high school, they stopped going to the moon. But I was thinking, you know, when I'm 50, which was a year ago, I'll be vacationing on the moon. There'll be colonies on Mars. But that hasn't happened because the political will that our nation hasn't decided to do that.
So until that happens, and all right, mean question, but is that going to happen in our lifetimes?
I think it will.
Absolutely.
In fact, what brought me into the Mars Society in the first place was a book written by Dr. Robert Zubrin called The Case for Mars, Why to Settle the Red Planet, How to Settle the Red Planet and Why We Must. And it basically outlined a really doable plan that not only NASA could do for half the manned spaceflight budget now, but it could also be done by private corporations, like Burt Rutan could do it.
Sure, but here's the thing, until we get there, and we don't have immediate plans to do it, I get the sense that you really slip into the other side of reality, and you really believe when you're in that suit and in that habitat that you're not on Earth.
Yes, you do, and I'll tell you when it really
Yes, I
hit
knew
me
that was-
home. I'd spent a couple years in Utah, going out to Utah, and then last summer, not this summer, but last summer, I went to the Arctic habitat, which is on Devon Island, which is in the far north, our Arctic Circle. And I'm expecting this high Arctic adventure, right? And it was until we landed on Devon Island, and I got on an ATV to drive to the habitat, which looks almost identical to the one in Utah. And once again, I was no longer in the far north, I was back on Mars. It's a very, very surreal but palatable mindset.
Well, this is why it's good. If you really believe that you're on Mars, that'll give you some sort of mindset to see if you can actually exist millions and millions of miles away from Mother Earth without going crazy.
And what does it take? We're not going to send Apollo-style astronauts to Mars because those were high-energy, get-it-done kind of guys that could make very quick decisions, but they were action people. They were trained to respond quickly to things that moved rapidly. When we go to Mars, we're going to spend 6 months on the road, if you will.
Sure.
We need the kind of people that are sitting in a tuna can for 6 months and be able to coexist peacefully with between 4, 6, 8 other people, even before we get there.
Well, we'll take a quick break, and the reason is because we have so many other things that you guys brought to show. But the next time someone complains about where they're living, well, where else are you going to go? What do you say?
Go to Mars.
Go to Mars.
Exactly. So we will be right back with even more cool stuff from the Mars Society. Don't go away. And welcome back to Inside Southern California. Jerry and Shannon, this is fascinating stuff, and we've got even more that during the break we set up here to show. But then during the break, one of you told me something that mind-blowing, and I want to make sure that everybody else hears it, and that's your involvement with NASA. Either one of you, jump in. You know?
Well, I'm actually the science PI for a NASA project that does research out at the habitat in Utah.
Yeah.
So it's a NASA Ames human-centered computing project. And we have a number of NASA researchers and university collaborators at the research station.
And you said NASA rents out?
Yeah, we go out once a year, and they're there for 2 weeks.
And they rent out the habitat?
Mm-hmm.
Once a year?
Yep, and they bring out
Wow.
tons of trucks, and we have 3 robots in the project.
Satellite uplinks.
Yeah, satellite uplinks, because the project is, what happens is astronauts go out in the field there, and they do science work, and it's relayed back immediately. So in the field out there, somebody can take a picture of a rock formation that's interesting, and I get it in my inbox, in my email inbox,
that is so
almost
neat.
immediately. It's a 4-minute delay.
So you're supported by the dues of your members and
Yeah.
donations and so forth. But what anybody ever says, and I can say this because you guys were kidding and called yourselves nerds, oh, they're just a bunch of nerds. Well, then if you are, then so is NASA.
Exactly.
What we have here is pretty fascinating. And I'm going to, whoa, there are 3, what is going on here?
Okay,
What
this is a brick. It weighs about 4 pounds.
God,
This is
it's
just
so
a
heavy.
typical brick on Earth here.
Yeah, okay.
But this is a
There.
demonstration because Mars is a smaller planet, has less gravity.
Yeah.
If you took that green brick to Mars,
Okay.
it would weigh what this red brick weighs.
Oh, heavy, not so heavy.
38% less
All
because
right,
Mars
cool.
is a smaller planet,
this?
there's less gravity.
Whoa. Woo.
And then if you took that green brick to our moon, that's what you'd weigh on the moon. It takes 6 of these moon bricks
Okay.
to make an Earth brick.
Earth, Mars. Woo. Okay, so that kind of demonstrates how I'm going to the moon because I don't have to go. Yeah,
exactly.
All
I'm
right,
about
this
moon.
is interesting because it looks like, I don't know, cayenne pepper or something like that.
This
What you
is
got here?
actually simulated Mars regolith. Regolith is soil that doesn't have any organic equipment in it, any materials. So it's basically a volcanic basalt.
Oh, let me take a look.
But this is what you would have, what you would find on the surface of Mars.
Ooh, it's very
And if
very
you want,
different.
If
you
we
know?
can get a close-up here, we can
Sure.
actually open this up and have you feel a little bit of
Okay,
Mars
well, let
dust.
me see
Very
here.
dusty there.
All right, let's see what we can do. I don't know. Let me try this. Oh, it's different looking.
Now Mars is really red in
you see
color
this?
like that because there's a lot of rusted iron in it. So it's very much like the Utah desert. You get this rust material in there.
Because
So
it feels
everything
like
is red.
crumbly rust.
Yeah.
It is,
Okay.
and there's
It's
nothing organic in it, and the organics is what make
Yeah.
our soil on Earth.
Oh, I see.
the
I see
Plus,
what you
Mars
mean.
doesn't have any water in the atmosphere per se. It doesn't rain on Mars. So all this stuff doesn't get nice and smooth like we get on Earth because it's, there's no rain to wear the edges off of things.
Well, they also, I've heard you say there's some type of past life on Mars that has been found.
We think
some
there
kind.
is. We haven't actually found proof of it. There's a meteorite that fell in Antarctica from Mars that they found and looked at it, and they thought there was a microbial life form in there. But it's still out whether they find that.
I heard about that microbial life form, absolutely.
But
But,
these
that's not for
rovers-
sure.
These rovers have been
not for sure. We
on
need to
Mars
send
looking for the
humans so
evidence
we
of
can get
water. And if they find water, and they found that Mars used to have a lot of water, chances are there is something that was living there at one time.
And you have recommended a couple of books, and I'm just going to hold them up here. And if you want to just give a thumbnail of each of
Okay.
these for anybody who'd like to go out and get them from the library or
The
buy
Case
them,
for
whatever.
Mars, The Plan to Settle the Red Planet, Why We Must, by Dr. Robert Zubrin. And also by Dr. Robert Zubrin is Mars on Earth. And it basically chronicles adventures of space pioneers in the high Arctic, like Shannon. In fact, she's mentioned
in
in
the
this
book.
book here.
I saw
But this
that.
talks about the Arctic habitat that we have.
That is so fascinating because at the end of the day, you guys have something so special. The chance to live a life completely different from just about anybody else on the
Exactly.
planet. And we've got 6 billion people on this planet. And I remember when I was in school, we only had 2 billion. Do the math.
Well,
We've got to go somewhere.
This is what attracted me to the Mars Society. It's not an organization where you send your dues in, you get a magazine every other month.
Well, at least you're giving hope. That's
Yeah.
the point. We've come to the end of the time at Inside Southern California, but it's not the end of the time for the Mars Society. Hope springs eternal. So we're going to take a quick break, and we will come back to say goodbye to Jerry and Shannon. So don't go away. Well, we're back just in time to say goodbye. And if you'd like to find out more about Inside Southern California, go to adelphiachannel.com, and some pictures behind the scenes, go to my website, lynnharper.com, and click on Inside Southern California. I think before I say goodbye to you guys, I'd like to say goodbye to our rover one more time. Can you come up here and say goodbye? Here she comes. Oh my gosh. And of course, we're seeing what she sees right now. So I hate to tell you, to say goodbye, I'm sort of into what you're doing. Jerry Williams and Shannon Rupert from the Mars Society, thank you again for coming, and thank you all for being with us. And once again, if you want to contact the Mars Society, it's marssandiego.org. So thank you so much for being with us. Tune in again next time. Bye-bye.